Welcome back to the Contrarian, everyone. I hope you're all doing well. I certainly am. For those of you who might be new, my name is Logan Moody. I love to talk about the markets with a unique spin on them. I try to, call this channel the Contrarian because sometimes I come to very different conclusions than the majority. And in fact, I've usually been most successful when I'm one of the only people seeing something, and I actually have learned to feel very comfortable being that way. So, today I'll be talking about Nvidia, of course, after their record earnings that just came out after the market closed today. Also talking about Target and Walmart and what that is pointing to in the retail space. And, of course, we're kind of dealing with perhaps some turbulence right now in the markets with just the increased potential conflict with regards to Russia and everything like that. So that's kind of, I would say, shaking the entire markets a little bit right now, just a rebuilding of the wall of worry of sorts, a lot more skepticism out there than maybe there was even just a few days ago. People are a lot more hesitant, and rightly so, but I'm really just going to focus in on kind of the big things of the day, offering my thoughts, and we'll go from there. So first, and definitely most importantly in the media right now, on the top of everyone's mind is the big dog Nvidia, that is by far the most valuable publicly traded company in the world right now. 3.6, approximately $3.5 trillion market cap, which is huge, especially considering where Nvidia came from just a couple years ago. I mean, a tenth of that, if even that market cap. So Nvidia has just had explosive growth in the last 2 years, and this recent earnings was no exception. And they actually did beat expectations again. And this was what I was actually expecting a couple of days ago. I made a video kind of detailing why I thought Nvidia was on track to beat and raise guidance again, which is what they did. And effectively, if you look at Nvidia's earnings, their revenue, their profits, everything over the last 2 years, it's effectively a linear trajectory that we're on. It's a very steep trajectory, of course, and that is why the stock has just completely taken off since then, is the massive growth of their data center sales and build out. And of course, the next generation of their semiconductors, being Blackwell, is also driving this premium on the stock price as well. Just the expectation that data centers and AI companies and everybody's going to keep purchasing their semiconductors and especially their Blackwell chips going forward. So again, Nvidia reported third quarter earnings after the bell on Wednesday that topped expectations on the strength of sales of its AI-powered chips, fueling what its CEO Jensen Huang called the age of AI. And they beat an expectation of 33.2 billion in revenue, and it came out at 35.1 billion. Also beat earnings per share at 81 cents. Estimated EPS was 74 cents. So on both of these numbers, they beat by about 10% to the upside. And I would say most remarkably after this earnings report, and it's probably what's confusing the most people, is just the stock reaction, the market reaction to it. And the stock is down maybe 2.5% in after-hours trading right now. And I think it's just overall, it's showing that the market really would have had to see a completely blowout quarter, like something even more spectacular than what we saw. I mean, this was a blowout quarter, and they also raised guidance for Q4. So, I mean, apparently the market really was needing something even more extraordinary to rally on that kind of news. And if anything, it may have been a kind of sell the news kind of an event to see, Nvidia down 2.5%, even though it beat so dramatically. I mean, it's just not what you would typically expect. And, I think it's a bit perhaps too soon to say what the complete reaction to their earnings will be. Maybe some of this selling is just people selling skeptically, generally speaking, just due to kind of what's going on with Ukraine attacking Russia and the potential for that conflict to increase. Perhaps there's just a lot of selling in the market, and because Nvidia is such a large component of the stock market, there could be a lot of selling simply because of that. But I think this also really shows just how the big winners of Nvidia's earnings today are those who sold options. If shareholders sold options, expiring, close to now, they won really big because the stock price really didn't go much of direction either way. And so those who sell options and that kind of an outcome happens really do profit quite a bit because it's effectively just free money coming in on a stock that you already own. And so the real winners from Nvidia's earnings were the option sellers. And I believe the options market was pricing in something like a plus or minus 8% move, after this earnings report. And so to see 2.5%, that's significantly less volatility. Of course, those who bought options going into the earnings, kind of gambling. Of course, I think most people were gambling to the upside, thinking Nvidia would go dramatically higher, 8% higher. But to see it kind of be around neutral almost, that makes it to where both options to the upside and the downside lose a lot of their value. And so the big winners from Nvidia's day today are actually the option sellers. So, Jensen Huang has said the age of AI is in full steam, propelling a global shift to Nvidia's computing. He says the demand for the Blackwell and for their existing semiconductors are very strong, which, that was pretty much what I was expecting to see coming from Jensen Huang. There is a certain degree to which a lot of their demand, I think, is a little bit exaggerated, is not actually real. And I've talked about this before, but effectively Nvidia, as their market cap explodes higher, they can borrow against that and they can lend money to AI startup companies who then place orders for their chips. And whether or not this startup company actually ends up buying their chips, all of the backlog of order really does show up in their earnings reports. And so Nvidia is somewhat kind of self-feeding the market cap increase that they have seen. So there is a degree to which, if that wasn't happening, yeah, their quarterly revenues would probably not be as high. But, seeing something like this, there are a lot of clients they have that are not startup in any way. They've been around for a while. The big tech companies, of course, and then governments around the world getting interested in AI. So, there's a lot of clients they have who aren't falling into that category of startup AI companies, although there are a lot of those. Now I will get into a special word from my sponsor. Just kidding, I don't have a sponsor yet. But if you would like to sponsor this video or other videos, let me know. LoganContrarian@gmail.com. I won't sponsor something if it is a scam or you're pumping something. Unfortunately, that is all of the offers I have received so far, and I don't do that. So give me a serious offer and I'll consider it. But next I'll be diving into the retail side of things with Walmart and Target, of course. They just reported earnings as well. Target dramatically missed their earnings and the stock is down some 20% on the day. They just reported earnings this morning, and so the stock is really taking a beating this day. Target, also cut guidance, so they're not anticipating as high of earnings coming up in Q4. Whereas Walmart actually had the opposite happen. They beat earnings again, and they raised guidance a little. So, kind of seeing opposite reactions or opposite results in the retail space. You're seeing Walmart really, take off and people be even more optimistic about it, and then you're seeing Target have more difficulty. Not a whole lot to say here, except that perhaps we're just seeing a continuation of what we've already seen in the last couple years of seemingly the bigger retail outlets continue to get even bigger. Like Costco, I think, is another obvious example of this. Costco, kind of like Walmart, has really exploded higher in valuation in the retail space. It's probably one of the better performing companies in the last 2 years. But, you look at something like Target, that's also a larger retail outlet. I think perhaps just a lot of their customer base maybe is shifting over a little bit to to others who are maybe offering better deals and things like that. So, I mean, retail kind of comes and goes. It's not the exciting, news in the stock market by any means. It doesn't come anywhere close to what Nvidia gets, just that one company. But is really interesting to see this trend take place of more consolidation in the retail space around the big players that are already there. So you have Costco and Walmart, and then you have the smaller ones that are generally speaking having their customer bases not grow as much, if that, or even shrinking. So, I mean, Target, we will really need to see if this company can have a turnaround in the fourth quarter, if they can have a better quarter coming up. But it seems like investors are kind of pricing in that that won't happen. And, I don't have a position in any of these retailers. So not a whole lot, at least there in my mind. So I guess the big thing of the day was, Nvidia's earnings, and that was the big news flash of the day. Everybody watching that. I actually didn't watch it live, but really interesting to see their guidance be raised again. I mean, it's just a miraculous kind of trend that has been happening in the AI space. So far, Nvidia is by and large, the big benefactor of AI. There's not really any other companies that have profited to the degree that Nvidia has off of the whole AI trend that has gone on. Others could begin to, turn profits off of AI. Guys like Dan Ives point out that Tesla maybe gets there eventually with their robotaxi service and, other things like that. Other companies, other semiconductor manufacturers as well, with more advanced chips that they're developing and beginning to sell. So you could see this semiconductor space pick up again, in my opinion. I think that space, generally speaking, has been kind of, I would say, forgotten in the last few months. Not completely forgotten, but it's just cooled down quite a bit. There's nowhere near the, mania that there was maybe 3 or 4 months ago in the semiconductor space. So I think that space, generally speaking, could pick back up again. That's just my personal thoughts. And of course, none of this is advice or anything like that, but I hope you enjoy listening to my kind of commentary on the markets and everything like that. Love to hear what all of you have to say and what you think as well. So let me know what you think in the comment section below. I hope you all have a fantastic rest of the week, and I hope to see all of you again at some point.